Okay, so we're live. Good morning. My name is Adam Olson. I am the MLA for Saanich North and the Islands, and today is BC Day. I decided to go live today because I've got a very special guest with me this morning. His name is Charlie Morris, and he has come all the way from Scarborough, North Carolina, to capture a story that has intrigued him and drawn him out west to Western Canada, or as they know in the United States, the Pacific Northwest. Aquaculture and fish farms, and basically the ongoing fish farm debate in the Pacific Northwest, the debate that Washington State has dealt with, and that British Columbia remains an outlier on the West Coast, and we continue to have fish farms. But Charlie has been in contact with me over the last number of months, and we've been communicating as he's been communicating with a lot of people on the coast here. And he's now here in British Columbia. And so rather than us having this conversation over Skype, which we've had a few of them, he's here to interview me. And as he walked through the front door of my office, I said, "Sit down. I got the lights on. I'm going to interview you. I'm going to turn the tables on you. Charlie Morris, welcome into my office. Welcome here to the West Coast. Welcome to Saanich North and the Islands."
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So tell me a little bit about Charlie Morris. Who are you? Well, let's start with who are you? Just a simple question.
Well, yeah. The easy answer to that is honestly, I'm a dad. Fundamentally, that's always my first answer. I've got two great kids, and that's actually the reason why I do the other thing that I do, which is make films, because I want them to grow up in a better world than we currently have, and I want their kids to grow up in a better world than we currently have. So that's my main motivation. So I have kids, so I just feel like filmmaking is a good way to tackle a lot of issues that are happening.
So I guess as an interviewer, one of the things that's important for me is that I actually do a full introduction. You're a documentary filmmaker. It's in the Facebook Live description.
Yeah.
But you're a documentary filmmaker. What kind of projects have you worked on in the past?
Let's see. The first one was I was a co-producer. Actually, I don't remember if my title was co-producer, assistant producer, but probably the first project I came across that was sort of big is called Radioactive Veteran. You can actually watch it on Amazon. And Radioactive Veteran was about the U.S. government's secret program to fly soldiers into the heart of the Nevada desert and explode nuclear weapons and have them be guinea pigs for exposure to to the fallout, and then to not cover any of their medical expenses or health care afterwards. And so, yeah, it's so awful you have to, because it's just hard to deal with. So anyway, that was a really interesting project to be on. I really loved that project a lot. So that was kind of my first real entry into documentary filmmaking. But the first project that I directly did was I got hired to film inside medium security prison, where they were training puppies to be service dogs. The prisoners were the trainers. And so that was my first time with the camera in a live setting, shaking like this, because there were no guards in the room, and there was 20 of them and one of me, and that was nerve-wracking. But anyway,
and cute puppies.
Very cute puppies. Oh my gosh, the cute factor is overloaded. But the first one, probably the thing I'm the most proud of, though, was a documentary called Bowling Creek Unpaved. The local town wanted to pave a trail through the last real intact forest in the whole area. It's like a green donut seen from above, surrounded by a city. It's like our Central Park. And it has this one of the last riparian zone creeks flowing through it, and they were like, "We can't get into the woods without a paved trail. We have to pave the woods so we can get into the woods with a paved trail." And that's a big deal back there. So I made a film about that slowed the roll of the town and delayed things a lot. And so now it's kind of they're back thinking about it. I'm sure they're still thinking of ways to pave it, but it slowed them down quite a bit, I hope. So
those three stories, I think, speak a lot about humanity
Mm-hmm.
From incarceration of each other to deal with the problems, the social ills, exposed expose themselves, and then we incarcerate each other.
Right.
To how we are seemingly willing to use each other in any way we need to in order to advance ourselves. In the first documentary you're talking about, that we're willing to test, like we know that these people are not going to survive this, or if they do, it won't be for long.
Yeah.
In terms of the radioactive soldier.
Radioactive veteran.
Right, radioactive veteran. And then finally, coming to an environmental piece, one of the things that we struggle with is this relationship that we have with the natural world. And you're here to do a documentary about fish farms and aquaculture, and that's how we got connected. We'll talk a little bit about it in a few minutes, but you're here following a Norwegian philosopher, author, whose book I admittedly haven't quite finished yet, but I'm working through, Being Salmon, Being Human, a gentleman by the name of Martin Lee Mueller, and I highly recommend getting that book. But you're here to follow them, and Martin has a completely different way of viewing the relationship between humans and animals.
Yeah.
And actually not even animals, everything else.
Yeah.
So it'll be an interesting, I'm sure it's an interesting tour. But what drew you to fish farming on the west coast of North America, being that you're from North Carolina, which is literally the other side of our world?
So the short version is, and you're lucky, you'll get the short version because I've answered this question so many times everywhere I've gone.
It's refined.
Actually, the first thing I want to say is, I don't know about the rest of Canada, but Vancouver Island is the friendliest place I've ever been. Period. Bar none.
You hear that?
Everyone is so friendly. And so I'm thinking Canadians are the friendliest people ever. But I'm like, well, I don't know about the rest of Canada, but definitely this island. I have not met a single unfriendly person. So many people have asked me this question. Anyway, so I was working in an outdoor gear shop and selling outdoor equipment, and a guy came in and said, I need super thick socks because I'm going to Labrador Island to meet with, the First Nations folks up there. And I said, why? And he goes, their fisheries are collapsing from climate change, and they don't have the ice any longer, and the suicide rates are the highest of any group anywhere. And I was like, how does suicide relate to collapsing fisheries? I don't get what you're saying. And he was like, well, let's go have a beer. I'll tell you all about it, because maybe I want to have a film made someday. And so we talked, and I was the guy before that meeting where, to me, to be blunt, a fish was a fish. What is a fish? Why does a fish have value? I never thought about it. And I'm embarrassed to admit that, but fish were just fish to me at that point. And he kind of leaned me in a different direction, and he's like, well, look, this is their deities. This is like their religion. It's a community to them. They're losing everything when they lose their fish. It's not just food. That's the first time I had that idea, that it's not just food. It's two communities relating to each other. As Martin Lee Mueller would say, the humans and the other than human persons. And so anyway, and then what happened is somehow a Swanson occupation Facebook posting popped up on my Facebook feed. And I was like, oh, well, who is this guy? And it was Ernest Alfred, and he's like, I'm camping on the fish farm platform. I'm not leaving till they're gone. Marine harvest, get out. And I was like, hey, this is similar to that thing my buddy Eric told me about. And I sent him the link, and he was busy. He didn't respond to it. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to be looking up there.
Oh, it's all good.
And anyway, that was the original inspiration, was Ernest Alfred. He was a firebrand. I mean, still is a firebrand. And I just started watching everything that he was putting out. And I messaged him, and I said, I'm a documentary filmmaker. You're way too far away, but if you shoot video, maybe I can help package it and put it into something. That never materialized, but we talked on the phone. And he was super nice, and this is probably 2.5 months or so after he started. And then, of course, later he got moved onto the island. But then through him, I learned about Alexandra Morton. And then I eventually found my way to you. And so I was just like, man, I have to make it to Vancouver Island. Like, I don't know what's going on or why it's so active on this island, because there's salmon issues happening all over the latitude circumpolar. But then it just turned into more and more things, other areas that I'd like to also film. But the idea really grabbed a hold of me more than I grabbed a hold of it. I just realized what Ernest is talking about, the way he would refer to fish, not as fish at all, but, you know, sentient creatures, really. And then when I connected with Martin's book, and Martin was saying the same thing, I was like, it's not that this is a story. It feels like this is the truth. And it's a truth I never knew. And so I always think, if it's interesting, I always refer to myself as Joe Schmo. If a story is interesting to Joe Schmo, me, then maybe if I bring my camera as I'm discovering what this fuller story is, maybe it might interest other people. Because I definitely feel like if the masses don't get involved with this kind of information about what's happening to wild salmon and what's happening to indigenous peoples, then, to be blunt, well, I won't use the words I was just thinking, but we're in trouble. We're in even worse trouble than we are. These populations cannot continue to be treated the way they've been treated. And I really see them as the same indigenous peoples who understand the value of these relationships. If we let that wisdom fall away, well, that's why we're in the situation we're in, because that wisdom was suppressed. And if the fish go away, especially keystone species like salmon, then we all just suffer when these things are not supported. So
there's a quote at the beginning, and again, I won't be quoting later in the book.
Yeah.
But I'll quote. There's a quote right at the very beginning, which is really, I think, comes to understand. We come to understand our current modern relationship with the world around us, and that was, if it was about the relationship between the Norwegian economist professor.
Yes.
And you remember the one which was basically, if the wild salmon are getting in our way, then we've got to be saying, getting in the way of the fish farming industry, then we best be saying goodbye to the wild salmon.
Yes.
And it was just this shocking thing for me to read, that there would be this philosophy or this approach out there that it would be okay to say that we, would say goodbye to what was natural, and replace it with these industrial net pen fish farms, because it's about profit, it's about biomass, it's about something other than being human and forcing ourselves to relate to the natural world around us.
Yeah.
We just change it.
Right. Yeah, it's insane.
Like I was, it is insane. I mean, I don't know that there's much more that can be said about that, other than the fact that
it's an overwhelming thing for a person to say. And it's still an overwhelming concept even for me. And where we've gone places, so, I've been on tour with Martin and Tora Geyer and George Jan as they've been doing this performance, and also just talking to people everywhere. And Martin uses that quote mostly when he talks to people. He leads sort of with that. And every time I hear it again, I'm just like, I just can't believe that we're at a point, that some of us are at a point where we're willing to say, yeah, if it's nature or more money. I think normally what the paradigm is, well, it's unfortunate that the animals are suffering because we need to make the money. But in this case, the person's saying specifically, let's just get rid of wild salmon so we can make the money. And that's more that's more direct.
Just straight up.
And shocking.
Saying, articulating out loud what maybe, some are thinking.
Yeah.
But don't have the courage to just come right out.
Yeah.
And say, well, then it's time for us just to, I mean, it would be better if they're all gone.
And see, where this comes for me, that statement, and the reason why I'm really trying to also bring in indigenous voices and perspectives into this series is because when I read that, what I actually hear is a person in power saying, we want to live here, and if indigenous peoples are in our way, you see where I'm going?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, these two communities have been treated identically, and these two communities are inextricably connected and have been for 10,000 plus years. And so I'm like, I'm not sure how I'm going to capture this story, but that's what I'm going to set out to do. And so what I'm trying to do now is somehow tell the story about what's happened in these areas, and to hopefully the people will watch it. So I'm planning on doing the Ainu culture on Hokkaido, Japan, and Kamchatka, and Norway with the Sami people, the east coast of Canada, and in the Newfoundland area, and then here. So this is area 1, and then hopefully I'll be able to get the funding to go to those other places as well.
So I'm part Saanich. My father's side of my family is Coast Salish Saanich, and the people across the Salish Sea that Martin connected with to tell the story, the stories that my uncle, John Elliott Stallcliffe, tells about the relationship between humans and fish, or humans and the natural world. The story that Martin Lee Mueller from Norway is telling about the relationship that we have, and how we've basically gone astray in our assumption that we are brilliant and everything else is
that's the
stupid
way to say it, right?
Everything else doesn't think, or doesn't have feelings, or doesn't have anything. I think is something that, when we take a look at our world around us and we look at the devastating wildfires, I read a report this morning and about there's an article coming out of Italy which is talking about the absolutely just unbelievable heat waves that's going on there right now, and that people have never seen. I mean,
I haven't been on the news for a week, so what's going on, huh?
It's a tough thing to pick up the news and read the absolute devastating changes in the world around us, and it's almost like there's one species that needs to change its perspective. There's just a single species.
That's a good way to put it.
And actually, there's probably less of that species. When we think, it's 7, 8, 9, whatever the billions of humans that there are on this planet, pale in comparison to the billions of other species that are on this planet. But it's only one species that needs to change its approach. And we have these stories. You talk about the stories in Eastern Canada, the Indigenous people, but the relationship, they are our relatives. Those salmon out there in the Salish Sea are our relatives. And that comes up no matter where you are on the coast or where you are around.
It's been such an eye-opening experience for me, because in North Carolina there's nothing like this. There's nothing like a species that is so beloved. And really everyone I've talked to, though, regardless of their background at all, everyone knows about salmon on this island. Everyone loves to talk about salmon. It's just, it'll be hard for people back in North Carolina, I think, to really grasp just how much salmon is part of everyone's consciousness here. No matter where you land on the issue, salmon is on everyone's mind here, and it's just wild. So, and what I'm trying to do with this film series is put salmon on everyone's mind, like everywhere. So maybe, and I hope the outcome at the very least is that we just come up with a much better solution than farmed salmon that kills wild salmon. That's what I really want to end, is that farmed, that wild salmon can thrive again, and we can see this in a whole new way. So,
but we reached you.
I
think one of the things that we think, like, I focus a lot on Saanich North and the islands. I focus a lot on Vancouver Island or BC politics in my role as an elected provincial official. It's hard to believe. It's hard to fathom that Charlie Morris in North Carolina caught hold of our story out here, and it captured you. And you just imagine how many other thousands of people has this story already captured. That's
when I come up with the thing of, like, when people believe that one person can't make a difference, Ernest Alford made a huge difference. He changed the course of my life with one Facebook Live posting, and then Alexandra's postings and the Chasing a Virus short film that was made got my attention. And then, you're the only reason I'm in Victoria, is because I was just like, when I first saw your video, one of your live things, I was just like, it blew me away. I was like, what am I seeing here? This is a politician. And right now, politician in the U.S. is a dirty word. If you're liberally minded at all, you don't trust any politician in the States anymore. I don't trust any of them on either side. And so I'm seeing this politician who's willing to say the types of things that I've never seen a politician say in my area. And I'm just like, why isn't he posturing and pretending the way? Why isn't he making false promises about his interest in nature? Because that's all we get is a false interest. They're like, well, we're going to form a committee to study to see if an oil spill might endanger the fish. We'll let you know in a decade. That's mostly what I'm used to, where you're like saying, there's this guy that I'm watching you, and he's like, I'm going to make protecting wild salmon one of my primary focuses, and I'm going to have a thing called #MySalmonStory. And I was just like, I don't even believe what I'm seeing here. I have to meet this guy. And so, and I interviewed you twice via Skype, and I was like, because I'm not going to be able to make it to Victoria, but here I am. So, yeah, it's...
Well, it's good because that Skype video was awful.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm glad that that's not the piece of content that's going out there with both of our names on it. But anyway, so I'm glad that you're here.
Yeah.
We're going to get to going out to a more beautiful place than this studio setting to go and actually have a conversation about my side of this story. But I guess I should dispel any kind of... I should dispel the fact that we are creating committees. We are recreating wheels that were created back, the last time that the NDP were in power. They did great work on wild salmon. They created a Made in BC wild salmon policy. We're now in a process of recreating that. And it's a decade, 2 decades, 20 years since that.
Yeah.
So, updating is a good deal. It's important that it's relevant to 2018 and not, the 1997 version of the policy. But I don't want you to feel that we're not doing our job as politicians in creating endless numbers of committees and bureaucratic processes in advance of taking the urgent action that's needed. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Look, we worked really hard. I worked really hard to get elected. And frankly, I'm not going to take the time that I'm given here. I don't know how long it is.
Yeah.
In this seat. To posture and to play games, and for me we need to do relevant work and we need to do it, and we've got this amount of time, so let's get on with it. Mm-hmm. And so I just speak pretty frankly about it. And so I appreciate the fact that you're here. We're gonna shut this down now and head out into a beautiful sunny day near the Salish Sea. Hopefully we can have some fish boats in the background.
Nice. But
I appreciate the fact that you have come all this way and that you are going to help us tell this incredibly important story, because as you said, I think that people on Vancouver Island and in British Columbia, and in fact, the sockeye will swim all the way up into the very heart of our province, so it captures our entire province. It's a founding industry for our province, and so I'm so glad that you're here capturing that story, because it's so important. And the effort that we have in trying to reverse the course that we're on when it comes to our relationship with salmon, but our relationship to the natural world around us. Is there any final thoughts that you have before we sign off?
Yeah, just too many to say, but the final thought was just I wanted to comment. The other thing that really grabbed me about your focus was the thing that clinched it when I wanted to interview you was when I saw the thing where you're speaking to the Legislative Assembly and you used your 2-minute slot often, right? Mm-hmm. You used your 2 minutes to read your wife's poem about goodbye salmon.
Yeah.
And that, it gave me goosebumps. I showed it to my children. I showed it to my parents, and and everyone had the same reaction. They're like, this is a person who's using their speaking time to talk about salmon in poetry form. And you could see the faces of some of the colleagues around you going,
"Oh, I saw those faces, man."
So it's just we need people who are willing to go out on the edge like that. And I think what politics forces a person into is to be positionless, And that's a big problem because everyone wants to get reelected, and we need more people to take a position to say, sometimes I have to behave in ways I might not like, but here at least is my position. And so that's why I wanted to come meet you. So
I think people get elected by being themselves, by being genuine, by having integrity, by saying what needs to be said.
You need to
no,
not in the States. At the
oh,
moment.
come on! Like that's to me.
How did we end up with Trump?
This is who I am. This is who I am. Yeah. Just one final comment about that poem. Goodbye Salmon, or Sorry Salmon.
Oh, Sorry Salmon.
Sorry Salmon. Yeah, and it's this big long thing where the poem is apologizing. For everything, right?
Yep.
And I'll put a link to that video in the notes in the description of this. But first of all, I got in trouble because I edited it a little bit, and so the author, when I got home, I need, like, the speaker cuts you off after 2 minutes.
It's just your mic's cut.
Done. So I needed to get to that last point because the last point was key.
Yeah.
And so I took an editor's pen to her poem, and so I was apologetic for.
So sorry, Salmon. Sorry, wife.
That's a poem that I could write. Yeah. Anyway, we're over it now.
Yeah,
but
okay.
the other point to that, or the other thing that happened out of that, was the CBC.
Who's the CBC?
The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
Okay.
Right? Vast majority of the people listening to this will.
Oh, okay.
But
we
got an American here and stuff. The CBC reporter that is on the beat of the legislature tweeted out after that. At Adam P. Olson just stood up in the legislature and recited a poem. I'm not even, I don't know what context it was in, and I'm not even sure if he wrote it. Right? And so then I tweeted back, I said, basically, haven't you been paying attention to the fact that I've been speaking of salmon like every other day in the legislature?
Right.
Like, can't it be a part of that bigger context?
Yeah.
That actually it's about developing and being committed to a narrative that is important and actually being disruptive.
Yeah.
And that's what I was. That's what that was. That's the entire reason why I did that. I wanted to disrupt.
Yeah.
So I think that we have to get into, and I think that your piece and these pieces, they're all disruption, and we disrupted your life.
Yeah.
BC reached out and disrupted Charlie Morris's life, and now you're here, and we're thankful for it.
Great.
Thanks for coming to British Columbia.
Yes.
I look forward to seeing your final piece. I look forward to seeing what I say in your piece.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to jump off now.
Can I mention 2 things?
You can go for it.
All right, so my website for the film...
Jeez.
It's going to be a film series.
Okay.
I'm still looking for the format. A lot of documentary filmmakers, they make a beautiful film, they take it to a film festival, 50 people see it, and then it dies on Vimeo. I am not going to go that route.
Okay.
I've already gone that route. I want to have something that feels accessible and approachable. I'm going to be doing I'll be putting out podcasts for material that doesn't make it into the final, but I'm going to be doing a series. It's going to be salmonfolk.com is the website. So if you want updates,
salmonfolk.com.
There's that. And if you're interested in seeing the performance that I've been following, this group from Oslo, they're performing tomorrow night at the Cook Community Theater. Do I have that name right?
Cook Street Village. No, it's a Cook Street Village Community Center.
Yeah, okay.
And it's that would be August the 7th?
Tomorrow, yep.
It's August the 6th day, August the 7th.
Yeah, but their website is beinghuman.com.
Right.
And anyway, I'll leave it there since we're kind of running over, but you can find the information on that. So obviously it'll take me a while to get home and start editing stuff, but I should start putting out at least interviews in podcast format and I want to have a constant flow of like good stuff released through Facebook and YouTube and things like that.
Awesome. So salmonfolk.com.
That's the website for the documentary film series,
beingsalmon.beinghuman.com
is about the book and the performance tour.
And I highly recommend reading the book. Google Martin Lee Mueller. There's some cool videos
Yeah.
of the work that he's done, like already captured and
Yeah.
and published. And okay,
Yeah,
that's it.
that's it.
And you can find Charlie Morris on Facebook.
Yeah. Salmon
There we
Folk
go.
Films on Facebook is the Facebook thing, but you can get that through the website.
Salmon Folk
All
Films.
right.
Cool, man. Thank you very much for jumping into the studio
Yes.
with me today. And
Thanks for
let's go.
interviewing me.
Let's
All
go
right.
capture some.
Okay.
Some
I'm going to put you on the other side of the camera.
rocking. Thanks.
Okay.
So, have a great day, and until
Oh.
next time, hi Aqua.